Ladies and gentlemen, it seems we have a problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hello, it is Thursday once again. That means it is time for you to spend another hour or so with the most wonderful people on the internet, us here at TopSpeed.com. This is the TopSpeed.com podcast. This is episode 8. We are happy to have you here. I am Christian Moe. Today I am joined by our editor-in-chief, Justin Coupler. Justin, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you top speeders out there doing today?
Hopefully everyone screams, "Yay, we're the best!"
Woohoo!
As you may have noticed by this terrible silence, Mark McNabb is the hateful traitor, and he has left us. And he is no longer here to do the podcast today. He is currently in North Carolina driving the brand new Hyundai Genesis. And we're sitting here working. But we're working for you guys because we love you. Mark will be back next week. He'll have a bunch of stuff to talk about for the new Hyundai Genesis. So if there's anything you guys want to know about that, go ahead and drop those in the comments or hit us up on the email podcast@topspeed.com, or you can find us on Twitter. You can, give us anything you want to know about the new Hyundai Genesis and its V8 or V6 versions, and then Mark will be back next week to tell us about it.
I got to tell you, I am pretty jealous of him. I wanted to drive that Genesis. He sent me that email saying, "Hey, can I go?" I almost said, "You know what? I think this is a job for me," because I wanted to drive that so badly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a better photographer than he is, so I think I should have been the one to go. But
I know, and I have the boss man card. Well, there's only one above me, so I figured I'd get to pull that card, but no. Well,
that's what we need to do next time. We'll leave Justin here to do the podcast we'll leave Mark here to do the podcast all by himself, Justin, and then me and you will go and we'll both drive, and you can do the words and the boss man stuff, and I'll take all the photos. It's perfect.
that sounds like a win-win. But then again, remember a few weeks ago we found out that he was a pretty good overnight DJ voice, so we might come back to a very, very weird podcast.
Well, that's okay. I'll revoke his access to the feed, and we'll just take it back over. It's totally fine.
Okay, sounds good to me.
All right.
Of course, iTunes might reposition us at that point, though. Then we'll be putting the Barry White channel.
Yeah. I can't find the Top Speed Podcast in the auto section. That's because we're in the sexy voice section. All right. So Mark's Weekly Wheels this week is the Hyundai Genesis, but he's not here to talk about it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to Justin. Justin had some Mazda 3, I believe you spent some time with, right?
Yeah, I spent a little bit of time in the Mazda 3. It's a hatchback version. Wasn't the base model, though. Mazda's doing kind of like what Hyundai does with their press fleet cars and sending us the fully loaded to the gills version. I mean, saying it's a 3 Series GT competitor is a little bit weird, but in terms of features, it really does stack up well, feature for feature, against the base 3 Series GT. Of course, it's not the driver of the GT and things like that, but feature for feature and price-wise, it was a pretty close competitor. The power is not great. It has a Skyactiv engine. It's somewhere, I don't have the figures right in front of me, but I believe it's just at 170 or just under 180.
Yeah, I think that engine's like a 168 maybe.
Yeah, it's somewhere in that range. And the fuel economy was out of this world. I hit somewhere around 40 miles per gallon on it, just tinkering around here in the city and a little bit of highway driving. But back to the main seller of this car are the features. And this thing had everything you could imagine on a 3 Series GT. Had the really thin back seats with the sporty two-tone leather, had a heads-up display, which is kind of creepy at first because I haven't seen one of those since about the late 90s Cadillac.
But that's because you've not been driving a Corvette. They're still doing that.
That's very true. But unlike those ones that project onto the windshield, this one actually has this cool little plastic tinted panel that comes up when you start the car and projects everything there. It gives you your GPS directions, speed, miles per gallon, all that really cool stuff, and even gives you a little alert for the speed limit in the area, which I found is a little bit off at times. But that's besides the point.
well, that's pretty fancy, though. I think
it really is. And the seats, for how thin and how sporty they were actually pretty darn comfortable. So I really don't have much to complain about on that car, except for with the 17-inch wheels that it had, it rode a little bit rough, but that was compensated by really, really good handling. So overall, I thought it was an excellent deal. I think it came in just under 30,000. I believe it was about 28 or 29,000. So really a great deal for all the options you're getting.
See, that would be my big thing, and I was going to ask you about the price. Like paying 30 grand for essentially a lowest tier Mazda. Now, yes, I know they have the Mazda 2, but really, like, that's not a car when you consider a car. That's I'm looking for the cheapest, smallest form of transportation I can get. And then you move up to real cars. And so the Mazda 3 is like the smallest real car you can get, and paying 30 grand is a lot.
But if you imagine, what's the base 3 Series GT coming about 40 grand probably? And that is with the vinyl fake leather that they try to pawn off as some, I can't remember what BMW calls it. I know Mercedes calls it MB Tex, whatever they're calling it now. It's still fake leather, and you don't get the nice stereo system. You don't get all the goodies.
I guess so.
But what they're marketing to is the dude that just can't quite afford a 3 Series, but really wants all the features, goes ahead and buys a loaded up 3 Series GT.
See, a lot of people do that, and I guess it's just me because I'm weird, but like, I would sooner buy a dead base better car than a super decked out worse car.
But I wouldn't necessarily say the Mazda 3 is a worse car. Is it a lower tier car? Yeah, but to call it a worse car.
Well, but okay. So I can spend the same amount of money and I can have a front wheel drive Mazda or a rear wheel drive BMW.
But the rear wheel drive BMW for the same price is going to wind up being at least 3 or 4 years old to get in that range.
I guess so, but it's like my parents did this. My mom had a 300, a Chrysler 300, and she sold it and bought a 200. Yeah, but her 200, she has the decked to the hilt with the Pentastar V6 and the leather and the sunroof and the navigation, like everything. There's not an option that is not on this car. The only thing it doesn't have that she wants is a little lip spoiler. That's it. So she went from a lower level 300 to a completely decked 200, and she's just like, yay, because I have all of these new features. She's like, yes, I miss some of the space, but if it snows, this is front wheel drive, so that's better. And look at my sunroof and my big navigation screen, and I'm just like, I don't know about that.
I guess it all really depends on the kind of driver you are. If you're the kind of guy that just has to have that BMW, then you just hold out. You wait for a few more years to save up more money, a bigger down payment, or what you need, and you buy that BMW. But if you're someone that just needs the features and doesn't care what badge is on the front of that thing, you're going to say, you know what, I'll take this Mazda 3 and screw the BMW. My dad did that a few years back, believe it or not. Well, not a few years back. Back in 2002, he was looking at either the top of the line, get this, you're going to laugh at this, the top of the line Saturn SC2 or the base level 3 Series. They both come in about the same range, both in the high 20s. And he actually went with the top of the line SC because this is back in the era of the really bad vinyl seats, the really crappy stereo system, and the black plastic cladding on the bottom of the body. So
the BMW where you got the car and all of the air inside of it was free. If you wanted anything else, it was an option. I'm surprised they didn't charge you for more than one seat.
That is so very true in those things. Every time I see one of those cars, I'm like, oh, why? How could they even think of doing that? How can they fathom putting this stuff on this car?
Who knows. Oh, but you know what, parents, sort of a big deal for me. Today is my dad's 50th birthday.
Hey, well, happy birthday, Mr. Mo.
Yeah, so I want to say a big shout out to my dad. So, anyways, let's move on. So, Justin drove the Mazda 3. Mark is off currently driving the Hyundai. But I still win. This week we're going to talk about my time with the mighty Nissan GT-R. I've actually driven 2 of these. The first one I drove was in 2012. And late 2012, I believe. And it was the 2013 Black Edition. So that one had a couple of the extra goodies, and then this last winter, right around Christmas for Nissan's 80th birthday, I spent a week and a half with a base level 2014 GT-R. Do you have any questions about this mighty machine there, Justin?
Just exactly how awesome was it, and how bad does the interior suck? I've never gotten a chance to drive one, so those are the two things I always hear is, oh my God, this thing is so fun to drive. It's so fun in the corners. It's so fun on the back road. It's so really, really fun on a big, long straightaway with absolutely no speed limit, but the interior sucks. It's very, very loud, and it will throw you off the ceiling if you hit a minor speed bump.
So the suspension is rough. I can say the interior is hugely improved from the Black Edition I drove to the new car, mainly for one central edition. So the whole center console where the shifter is was made of the nastiest, slimiest plastic, and in the Black Edition it meets a carbon fiber piece. So there's nasty, slimy plastic, and where the carbon fiber piece touched the plastic, it rattled the whole time I was in the car, anytime over about 30 miles an hour. Yeah. In the new one, there's now padded leather in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not an area you touch very often. And they've gotten a lot better about that. More of the stuff you touch feels better than it used to when I drove the car in 2012. So that's nice. But there's still some really, really cheap spots. Like between the back seats, there are two big Bose speakers that are mounted into what feels like melted down McDonald's toys. For being like 47 speakers in it, the stereo is not that great. It is very loud. Tire roar is tremendous. Wind noise is tremendous. But the seats are comfortable. They hold you well. And every time you look at the gas pedal, the way you fly down the road is such a good feeling.
That's got to be enough just to make you forget about everything else. It's like, oh yeah, everything sucks, but it's just so fast, and the world's a better place at that point, isn't it?
So when I drove the first one, I was impressed with its abilities, but I didn't enjoy the car that much. But I only had it for a day, and I was at Nissan HQ just outside of Nashville, and that's where I spent most of my time. I was just cruising around this busy metropolitan area of Nashville, Tennessee. And I was like, okay, yeah, the car's fast. What turns I was able to find and throw it around, like it defies physics a bit, but it didn't move me. And then I had another friend of mine who got to spend a week with it, and he goes, trust me, if you get this car on roads your perception of it will change completely. And that was 100% true. Once you get it an area that you're comfortable with, because, I mean, at the time when I drove the first one, it was the most powerful car I'd ever been in. And Nissan just let me loose with it. Like, I had a handler for most of the morning, and then we went to lunch, and the handler left. And there's like, you have the car, be back at HQ by 5. So, right. But then you're suddenly going, I'm in the middle of a huge city filled with police officers and people in a $115,000 car that isn't mine.
Some people would go a complete opposite direction with that. Woohoo! I'm in a place with a bunch of police officers and a $115,000 car where nobody knows me. Yay!
That's true. I mean, well, so I was trying to not stuff it, which was a big thing, and I didn't know any of the roads, so I couldn't really push the car that hard when you don't know what's over that blind crest or you don't know what's around this bend, sort of thing. Once I drove it back up, once I drove the new one up from Miami though, and I was here in Tennessee and roads I know, I gave the thing a workout, and it's just so fast and so good and so amazing. And I don't care how terrible the stereo is and how loud it is and how uncomfortable and awful the suspension is. It's so good in so many ways.
Well, here are some things that people don't seem to grasp when they're buying a car. They have to look at who they're supposed to cater to. Someone that's going to go and buy a Nissan GT-R or a car of that type, they're not looking for something comfortable or with a nice stereo or that has big comfy seats that are like a couch cushion. They're looking for a car that is all motor, will go fast in a straight line, and will take turns crisply. If they wanted a car that had all of that combined, they'd go and spend $200-some thousand on a Ferrari 458 or something like that that's a little more comfy. This is something you're paying all that money to get that engine. That's what you're paying the money for in the suspension.
Yeah, that fancy all-wheel drive system, and it's like I agree with that a lot. Like again, with the way everything feels, you can tell. Like this car is $100,000. 98,000 of those dollars went to the engine, transmission, suspension, the bits that make you go. The other 2 grand was spent to try and put some wheels and body panels on it and maybe throw a few seats in. But I guess what bugs me is, when you're hitting it like $100,000, I can get an M5. And an M5 is not quite as fast, but it is much better built, and it is almost as fast, and it still looks like just $1,000. I mean, it looks good, it's comfortable, sounds good, does everything it needs to do, but it can't actually match that speed of the GT-R, and that's what it took some real time for me to grasp my brain onto. It's like the GT-R. If you take it's like 0 to 60 times, its lap time, stuff like that, there are literally less than a dozen cars, I think, on sale in the world that are faster than it.
Oh, yeah.
I think like 0 to 60 time, there's only like 5 actual real production cars that'll best it that I could go buy here in the US. So it's like, okay, so I'm getting, the top 1% in the world of performance ability, and I'm only paying 100 grand for it. And when you think that that's 10% of the price of a Bugatti, things start to make a little more sense.
Yeah, it's 10% of the price of Bugatti, and it is, about 0.3 of a second slower, give or take?
I'm not even sure if it's a full 0.3. Yeah,
because I know it's somewhere around 2.8, 2.9, and the Bugatti's in the 2.6 range.
Yeah, they're both under 3, and really, like, that under 3 mark is pretty much impossible for most cars to do. So,
yeah.
it's such a, like, and when it left, I was like, okay, the GT-R left, that's kind of sad. But all the time now, if, like, I'm sitting in traffic behind a slow car on, like, a back road somewhere, I'll see a gap, and I'm like, man, if I had the GT-R, I'd be perfectly fine. No way I could do that in this Golf.
That's one of the hardest things about our job is going from these super fast, super awesome cars, and then back into our car that we used to think was really awesome. Now it's like, but now it's slow. That's one of the depressing things of our job is getting back in our car. Like I remember back when I was getting all the press releases, I'm on a bit of a lull here starting the next couple of weeks. But back then when I went on my first lull, I was driving, our full-time driver for the family was a 2002 Dodge Neon. So I was going from these fully loaded, beautiful cars like the Kia Cadenza and things like that. And then they took the last car away from him, like, but no, I have to drive this.
Yeah.
It's kind of that depressing letdown, but you kind of get over it and so forth. Now, a question about the Nissan when you went to HQ to drive it. HQ doesn't have any sort of test track to take you to do maybe some controlled track driving?
I do know that they do go to the now unused Nashville Motor Speedway to do some testing with certain cars. When they brought the Juke R over here to the States, they called some journalists out to Nashville and let them drive around the track there and do some of that stuff. But no, when I was there that day, that was not part of our little trip.
Oh, that stinks.
So,
that's
yeah.
part of the fun of a GT-R.
Yeah. I may or may not have found an abandoned runway that is mildly close to my house to get the GT-R on before it left when I had the second one. Things got quick.
I can only imagine. How long's the average runway? Was it about a mile and a half maybe?
The one that I've got near my house is just short of a mile. It's like 4,900 feet or something. It's a private runway that was going to be for a development community. Like it was, if you owned a plane, you could buy a house and you bought a second lot to put your hangar on for like small Cessnas and stuff. Yeah. So it's just shy of a mile. But there's a really nice area that's paved with a shallow turn-on to get onto it, so you can pick up speed before you hit the actual runway. Yeah, it's closed off now, though. The guy who used to own it sold it to the bank, and so now they have this huge, like, 1-inch steel cable across the entrance with no entry signs. So
that's no fun.
Yeah, I've been kicked out of my runway.
Yeah, we actually have one of those communities around here at the big runway. I keep wondering if I can maybe bargain with them when I get a faster car on loaner, see if I can bargain with them to get some time on that on that runway. It doesn't get much use. I don't see why they wouldn't let me, but I'm not sure what the legalities are behind all that garbage.
Right. Yeah. You do have to be careful with that. There's a lot of stuff that can get you in trouble with it. But really, you only need 20 minutes.
Mhm.
You would be really surprised how many times you can get up and down that runway in 20 minutes, especially in a fast car.
Now, did you try to get? How many times did you get up and down that runway? Or theoretically, how many times could you have gotten up and down that runway?
Um, in 20 minutes,
Yeah.
70 or 80.
Oh my. Oh, that would be fun.
Um, well, if you think about at a speed of 120 miles an hour, which is literally nothing in a GT-R, that is like third gear going into fourth in the GT-R is about 120. You're going a full mile in 30 seconds. So that's 2 runs, or that's slightly more than 2 runs in a minute. So all the way up and all the way back in a minute. So, I mean, in 20 minutes, that's 40 if you're just doing 120.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, you can get a lot of runs.
that is as awesome as it gets. I got to talk to Nissan about giving me one of those. I've been begging, but shot down so far.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to get a hold of. That is for sure. But anyways, let's go ahead and let's move on to some new stuff. We've babbled on about our cars and our enjoyments long enough. We're really getting off topic without Mark being here. Maybe he does have use.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, let's go ahead and cover our best and worst of the New York Auto Show. If you guys haven't seen it, we did do a post on this. A bunch of us picked our best of show and our worst of show, and then we compiled them into one big post here. Let's start with the big boss man, Phil. Phil chose for his best as the Dodge Challenger. Justin, what do you think about his selection?
I don't necessarily agree or disagree. I think the Challenger was an awesome pick only because of the changes they did make. The 1971 inspired taillights and things like that are really, really cool. But really, other than some other interior tweaks and the movement of the 6.4 liter from the SRT8 down to a Scat Pack package, those are about the only really enhancements that we saw. Well, what's really cool, though, that I mentioned that some people didn't seem to catch, though, is the movement of that engine from the SRT8 line now opens this gigantic gap in the SRT8 line that we all know what is going to be filled with.
Right, the Hellcat.
Yes, that ultimately confirms that the Hellcat's coming without them telling us outright it is coming. Because why else do they take that big engine out of the SRT lineup? And we also were in negotiations about some exclusive images of the Hellcat engine, but unfortunately those fell through. But the Challenger was a cool pick. I like the 71 inspiration. I wouldn't call it my best, but it was still cool.
Yeah, it makes me sad that there wasn't a bit more changed to it. I would have liked to see more power out of the engine. Like for me, like that's one of the biggest problems that the Challenger has right now is, Camaro and Mustang are just eating its lunch in every direction. So I wanted to see a bit more power, maybe have them cut some weight, try to improve the performance of it. Now, granted, the Camaro and Mustang are now essentially sports cars, not muscle cars, and the Challenger is still a hardcore muscle car. But yeah, when you look at the price versus horsepower numbers between the three of them, the Challenger always comes out in the end. So I really would like to see some more power out of that. But now that they have a Scat package though, that does bring the price down. So hopefully once the Hellcat comes out with the Scat Pack, things will even out a bit. Go ahead.
The Challenger kind of its sales are way down. Not way down. Let me rephrase it. Its sales are down. I think it's about 20% over last year, whereas the Charger is up 20-something%. So there's a huge swing there, and I think that's mostly because the Challenger caters to a specific, very, very small niche of people that were born and raised in the muscle car era and still want that muscle car. Because like you said, the Camaro and Mustang are sports cars now. They're no longer muscle cars, especially come 2015 when the Mustang goes to independent rear suspension and completely redesigned. Then it's a complete sports car. So it really caters to a small group of people that is slowly losing interest in it. So you're starting to see it kind of tail off, and a redesign is going to have to come to keep interest in it very soon, probably the next 2 years or so.
Yeah, agreed. All right, well, Phil's worst of show is actually something I kind of agree with, and that was the Scion FRS Release Series 1. So Scion has done a whole bunch of these release series cars, and actually we're going to talk about another one in a minute, where all it is Scion goes, hey, look, here's a car that we already sell that you can already buy, and we're going to change one thing about it, and it's not going to be very important, and then we're going to sell it to you again. And so this one has a hideous shade of mustard yellow paint, which is the really big addition. They do say like there's a new exhaust, and there's a few tiny like Toyota Racing Division pieces, but speed and horsepower are completely unchanged. So I'm not sure what the new parts do, other than maybe make it a little louder or something. But yeah, they say there's no increase in horsepower or speed or performance in any way. So that's utterly pointless, and it only comes in ugly freaking yellow. So it's just not a great car. Like, I love the FRS and the BRZ. It was I believe episode 1 I talked about the BRZ. Got to drive it, super tons of fun. In a lot of ways, it's even better to drive than a Miata. I'm worried about its build quality issues, but it's still a great car. And then all they need to do is just give it a little bit more power through some like refined exhaust, maybe up the compression ratio a little bit, work on some things, some new suspension bits, maybe lower the weight a tiny bit, not slap ugly yellow paint on it.
Yeah, I actually talked about the FRS Release 1 a little bit in one of my pieces, and I pretty much tore it apart. I'm very annoyed with FRS, BRZ, GT86. I thought they were cool when they first came out. They've been played into the ground, number one. So many people are like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. And I don't think it is. It's a cool car. It is cool. It's purpose built, but it's not as cool as everyone thinks it is. It has a manufactured torque curve. It's only 200 horsepower. It really reminds me of the S2000. And I was equally critical of the S2000 because it was the same thing as all horsepower and limited torque. So you get all this cool power to brag about, but you don't have the acceleration that you should have in a car with that kind of horsepower. Now you add on, like you said, the ugly mustard yellow, the side sills, all the weird GT-R, weird TRD stuff. Ugh, I'm sorry. It's hideous. It's absolutely hideous. Yeah, I don't know where else to go with that one. And they claim some things like the exhaust system and the lowering springs. But as I said before, that exhaust system looks to be a catback system that does nothing but make your car sound like it has gas. And lowering springs typically do nothing more than drop your oil pan closer to the ground. So, yeah, I had some big issues with it. Will it cater to a specific crowd? Will they sell the 1,500 units they're making?
Yes.
Absolutely. They will sell them to all the kids that want to buy a lowered car and put the big wing on the back and say, hey, I'm cool. But to the true enthusiasts that know what they're talking about, they're going to say, no, I see through your rouge there, Toyota or Scion.
Yeah, well, Toyota.
Yeah, Toyota.
All right, let's move on to some more exciting things. Let's talk about your pick for best of show because it's pretty, and I'm going to stare at it.
Yes, the Vantage GT. My God, Aston, you are now my savior. I love you. I love you. I love you. Now give me $100,000, please. Yeah, they dropped down the price from, I believe the base price of the Vantage V8 in 2014 was about $120,000.
Yeah, it's a big drop.
Yeah, they stripped out some goodies, of course, expectedly, but they kept the core, the essence of the Aston Martin Vantage in there. The 4.7-liter V8, 4.6-second sprint time, 190 mile an hour top speed. All that good stuff is still there. Plus, you get the Aston Martin wings up front. So it is just a whole lot of awesome. It's one of the sexiest sports car to come out of Britain, I think.
Ever.
Yeah, and like we spoke before, you can have a Nissan GT-R that performs better. And
God, it's so fast.
Yeah, it's so fast, handles well, has all-wheel drive, but still you have the Nissan badge on it. Or you can have the wonderful Aston Martin wings parked in your driveway. Which would you prefer?
With real sexy leather
Yes.
and a real manual trans. Oh wait, no, I can't get the GT with the manual, can I?
No, I don't think so.
No,
I don't think
see,
so.
ugh. That's still, right now, currently, as of this moment, Aston Martin is still my favorite car company in the entire world. Because, as far as I know, they're the only car company that will still sell you a V12 with a manual.
Oh,
Unless Pagani might. But the V12 Vantage Roadster still has a manual. And it's the only car that Aston still sells that I'm aware of right now that you can get brand new that still has a manual.
oh, well, hang on. Hang on. The Aston Vantage GT is stock with a 6-speed manual gearbox.
It does come
So,
with a stick
yes,
and three pedals. Oh, Aston Martin, you're amazing.
rereading
I
it.
love you.
I'm just rereading it. It is a 6-speed manual gearbox.
Okay, because they're cutting that manual out of everything. Like the new Vanquish is automatic only. The new Vantage V12S is automatic only. The Vantage V8S is automatic only. So
Yeah.
they're cutting it out of everything. So yes, there we go. It's
Yeah.
it's perfect. 3 pedals, Aston Martin, beautiful hand built interior. God, I want one of
And
those.
it makes people look. Seeing a GTR, if you know what you're looking at, makes people look. But for the most part, when people see a GTR fly past them, and a quick glance, it kind of looks like a 370Z. Not exactly, but in a quick glance, you'd say, oh, 370Z from the front.
Or a big
Um,
Maxima.
Yeah, our massive Maxima, yeah. But an Aston Martin, people recognize that. People go, oh, you got an Aston. Okay. And that goes a long way. And I just think it's amazing they dropped this thing down under 100 grand. Granted, I don't have the money to buy one, but hey, someone else can and I can drool.
I know. Astons are one of those cars. Like, even if you don't know cars, you see it and you just know that's fast, that's expensive. It's like Ferraris. Ferraris are that way. Ferrari has never made a car that you didn't look at and know that even if I don't know that's a Ferrari, I know it's fast and I know it costs money. Aston does that very, very well.
Exactly, and they're one of the few that can. So many companies have their boring cars. Jaguar has them, Mercedes has them, but Aston, yeah, that's when you look, you go, oh yeah, that's fast, that's expensive. I want it. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is, but I want it.
Jag's a great example. You can get an XJL Super Sports. You're looking at like $130,000 and it's got 550 horsepower or whatever, but it just looks like a big slab of black.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
it doesn't.
it's pretty, but it's not exciting. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to things that are much less attractive with your worst in show choice.
Oh, okay. I hated the FRS, but this Charger, I'm sorry, I take issue with it. The more I look at it, the more I'm getting used to the look. With pretty much every other Fiat-ized Dodge and Chrysler car, I get used to it after looking at it. But that's not a good thing. You shouldn't have to get used to seeing a car. Like when the Cherokee first came out, I got used to those weird little alien-shaped headlights and all that good stuff. This thing, they completely dartized it. They took it, slapped a dart front end on it, made the back end look a little more dartish. And really, you're taking the worst or the second worst selling car in Dodge's lineup, and you're making the best selling car besides like the Caravan in Dodge's lineup and making it look like it. The math doesn't quite add up with me. They're expecting like through osmosis because they slapped the Dart's front end or grill on this that it's suddenly going to trickle down to the sales are going to trickle down to the Dart. I don't think so. This bottom up design scheme has proven again and again not to work. So many people were going away from it. I know for a while Volkswagen was doing it, and they're starting to pull away from it. The bottom-up design it doesn't work. You can't do that, and it just made this car look ugly. Now I am glad they didn't really ruin it, make it some 4-cylinder Econo box, but they did about the next worst thing they could have done.
I'm gonna wait until I see one in person because that does change perceptions. Like example, the Panamera. Every time I see a picture of a Panamera, I think that is the ugliest car ever created. But when I see one in real life, I'm like, you know what? That's not that bad. What gives me hope is I still haven't had the time to really stop and look at any solid profile shots of the new Charger. If it still has that same kind of square meaty profile and it still has like the big angry like rear hips and things like that, I'll kind of let them get away with the front end, but like this front three-quarter shot that you included in your piece is like the worst angle for this car. It just looks awful in every way.
Yeah, it's not a good look for it. I'm going to tell you, I'm looking at the side profile. The middle section of it looks pretty much the same. From the midway through the rear quarter to the A pillar look pretty much the same. The front and rear, though, the headlights wrap around too much. It looks a little too rounded for me. The front end nosedives. It just doesn't look like a Charger anymore. It looks like something that belongs on a rental lot now. Now, there are some cool things about it. Don't get me wrong. I kind of like the outline around the headlights. I kind of like the Easter egg Dodge emblems shoved in the side of the headlights. That was kind of neat. But the rest of it just isn't that attractive to me, to be perfectly honest.
Right. Well, let's go away from ugly cars then. My pick for best in show is the Corvette Z06 convertible. I talked about the Vette convertible a bit last week, and I just love this car for so many reasons. Not only is the new Vette the best Vette ever, and I'm a huge Corvette fan, like love Corvettes. I like my Volkswagens, and I love, Fezzas and Lamborghinis are great, and I have a huge affection for Aston Martins. My dream car for as long as I can remember, and the car that got me into cars, is the Corvette. I mean, this has a very special place in my heart. And to see a Corvette that looks as good as everybody else, is as fast or faster than everybody else, and is now as well built as everybody else, is huge for me.
Yeah, I mean the new design of the Corvette really drug me back into the model. For a long time I had an issue with Corvettes. I grew up in the era of 190 horsepower Corvettes, so I kind of got desensitized to them. I was like, oh yeah, okay, well now there's cars out there that have V6s that'll smash one of those things. But now that they did this and they made the Stingray and they made it all aggressive looking, the hard body lines, got rid of the afterburner taillights, and then the Z06, oh my God. And then convertible Z06, oh, you're just awesome. And then it gained very little weight from my understanding from the hard top to the convertible. They say it's a tiny bit of a weight gain, but not very much.
Yeah, it's almost nothing.
Yeah, they say it's you can't even really tell it. It's just a couple pounds here and there. That's just amazing. To be perfectly honest, I can't really put it in any other way but to see a Z06 drop top with almost no weight gain.
Right, like that's the biggest thing for me, and I think that's what people need to really be paying attention to, is this one car proves once and for all America has what it takes to build a world-beating car. The fact that they had to do almost no strengthening, almost no bracing, and has gained almost no weight to cut the top off of this car proves that the chassis that they have built, this all-aluminum frame that they have built for the car to begin with, because it's essentially the same frame that's in the base Corvette. So we have engineered and built the base Corvette so good that we can cram a huge-ass motor in it, an entirely new suspension, major aero work, and lop the top off, and it's still a solid, well-built, sturdy car. So this is no longer, well, yeah, a Corvette is as fast as a Porsche, but it has a terrible interior and it's not built as well. It's all brawn, no brains. Or the Z06, like, yeah, it can beat a Ferrari around a track, but I mean, it barely manages it, and it's just parts that are cobbled together. We finally have a car that proves to the world, no, we know what we know what we are doing. Look at this. This is badass. This is amazing, and we are going to beat you. And that makes me so happy.
Yeah, it's a huge step in American automaking, and it's massive for us. We've never done this before. We've always had fast cars, but we've never made cars that can do what the Corvette Z06 can really do to the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's oh yay, just amazing.
Yeah. And whenever I look at the Corvette Z06 and then I say, okay, what can compete with this car? And when I have to think, well, I guess the Ferrari 458, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really awesome when I can actually say, I guess the Ferrari 458 is the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't think a California is going to be quick enough.
No, I don't think so. I not even close, I don't think.
Yeah, that V8 just doesn't have the power. I mean, maybe the California T with the turbo, maybe.
Yeah, I think that may. I'm not sure in the handling department, but maybe straight line. I have to check up on what exactly it can do in a straight line. I can't remember off the top of my head. But what's really odd, Christian, your selection for worst. You like oogled this car. You practically like made love to the car in the last podcast. What's the deal, man?
Okay, so my worst in show is the Volkswagen Golf Sport Wagon concept with the diesel and the manual and the all-wheel drive, and it's because I'm mad at Volkswagen because Volkswagen's mean. Basically, this is the car I want to buy. This is it. This is sorry about my phone, guys. This is the car I want. I need to buy. It's my Golf with all-wheel drive and a wagon. Again, before I got my Golf, I had a Subaru Outback, and I loved my Outback, but it wasn't torquey enough for me, and it drank fuel, and it died. It exploded into little pieces. It broke. But so we bought the Golf. It was smaller, and it was front-wheel drive instead of all-wheel drive, but I had the diesel torque, manual transmission, fun to drive, and I get, I mean, depending on the day, 50 miles to the gallon out of it. So, like, Volkswagen's like, Mr. Mo, the car that you have been asking for the past 4 years is now here, and it is in New York, and you can come look at it. By the way, we're not promising we're going to make it. It's just a concept.
So you're gonna take your ball and go home.
Yes. So it's like, have you? I don't know if anybody's seen it, but there was a video like 3 years ago that was making the rounds on the internet. That was parents that had found an Xbox 360 box or a PlayStation 3 box or whatever for their kid, and they wrapped it and they filled it with nothing. And the kid opened it and he saw the box and he's just screaming to him. He's like, "This is the best present ever! Oh my gosh, my parents are the greatest parents in the whole wide world. I love them. You know, they are the wind beneath my wings." Then he opens the box and it's empty and the parents laugh at him. And that's how I feel. Is Volkswagen's here and I'm like crying and hugging people and thanking them for all of their hard work. The Volkswagen goes, "Psych."
Did you just say psych?
Yes.
I haven't heard that since high school.
And you're way older than me, so now I feel terrible. But I mean, like that's what it was to me. It was like the heavens have opened and brought that I have wished. No, that's a huge lie.
JK.
So I'm mad at them for teasing me because it's very mean, and you shouldn't do that, Volkswagen.
But honestly, I mean, all they're saying is we're not promising you. I mean, it's still possible. You just have to get on your horse and go out there and promote it yourself.
I guess so.
Just talk about grassroots promotion.
You know what? Well, they're not building that car there, but the Volkswagen factory is just an hour and a half away from me. I'm going to go pick it.
You'll be the one-man picketer out there.
What do we want? 4Motion! When do we want it? Now!
You have to get some creative camera work out there so it looks like there's like 10 of you out there protesting it.
Ooh, 10 of me. That's so many.
CGI these days, you might be able to do that.
Yeah, maybe.
Be kind of scary to see 10 of you out there, though, so I take that back.
Yeah. All right, let's move a little farther down. Let's move on to the man that nobody likes anymore because he left us to go play with V8s in North Carolina, Mr. Mark McNabb. Mark's choice for Best of Show was the Land Rover Discovery Vision concept. If you don't remember, we talked about that one last week. It's Volkswagen, or not Volkswagen, it's Land Rover's super fancy prototype car with the invisible see-through roof and all that sort of stuff. Do you think it's worthy of a Best in Show nomination?
The fact that it has a somewhat of a production future. Now, we're not going to see this thing in any production form, but the fact that they've already said, hey, look, the Discovery Sport is coming, and it kind of looks like this, it does deserve some mention. As a Best in Show, I don't think so. But then again, Mark knows a whole lot more about four-wheel drives and SUVs and Land Rovers than I do. The features are really cool. That see-through hood was awesome. The self-driving system where you hop out and you remote control it towards you. That's a really cool feature. But again, are two things that are either very far down the line or never going to happen at all. But I can see a reason for picking it because it is a huge change and a huge jump forward for Land Rover, saying, hey, look, we're going to sub-brand ourselves. We're going to make two different tiers, although they do already kind of do that. They're actually saying, hey, look, these are our leisure cars. This is our power. This is our super SUVs, and these are our rugged off-road SUVs. So it's kind of cool to see that they're showing off their leisure side of the SUVs. So I can see why he picked it as a best in show. It wouldn't have been my pick, but, Mark sucks. All of that was to lead into me saying Mark sucks.
See, Mark, if you didn't leave us to play with awesome cars that we aren't getting to play with, we would still love you and we wouldn't be mean to you when you're not here to defend yourself.
Yes.
All right. His worst in show, I think, is a pretty solid choice.
Yeah.
It is the Acura TLX. If any of you guys didn't know, the TSX and the TL are kind of going away, and we're getting this combination TSX, and it looks almost exactly like the two cars were kind of smashed together to begin with. If I laid this car out in front of you and I said this is a brand new, all new redesign, like this car didn't exist before a few weeks ago, and I set it there in front of you, you'd be like, "Are you sure?" Because that just looks like the Acura that my neighbor owns. It's very boring.
And what's really funny? My next door neighbor owns a TSX, and literally I can look out my window and say, yeah, it does look just like that.
Yeah. It's got the new kind of fancy headlights that have been pulled from some of their recent concepts, which look nice. And to be fair to them, it is a very clean design, and a lot of people that are looking to buy this kind of car don't want something that stands out. They don't want, the boy racer wings that come with an S.p.A. or anything. But still, it's so boring, and with everything else going on at New York, it was just like, oh, I thought someone just parked the cab in the lobby.
I gotta say though, I have to give Acura a little bit of credit. They did do one good thing by getting rid of one of the worst luxury cars I have ever driven in my entire flipping life in the Acura TL. Oh, I haven't talked about it yet on the podcast, but it is by far one of the worst luxury quote unquote cars I've ever driven in my life.
Well, I think we might have to cover that next week in the weekly wheels.
I'll have to talk about it. I've been reserving it because I don't want to bash on Acura, but maybe we'll talk about it next week.
All right. We're running a little short on time. We've got a crap ton of stuff to cover, so I'm just going to blow through the rest of this list. So some of our other best in show choices, which is kind of funny because one of them is actually a worst in show choice also. But we have a Ford Mustang 50th Anniversary Edition was chosen as a Best in Show choice. The new Toyota Camry was chosen as a Best in Show choice. And the Dodge Charger was chosen as a Best in Show choice. Worst in shows, the Viper Carbon Time Attack Edition for being nothing very new or exciting.
And having the world's longest name.
Yes. Another Scion. We have another Scion release series, the Scion XB Release Series 10. For being, dear God, it's the XB, why isn't this thing dead, and why are you still selling it? And then we have the RS7 Dynamic Edition for the same thing. Hey, look, it's a car we already make, and we added like one or two things, and we're going to add $40,000 to the price tag.
Yay, Audi!
Yeah. So, some things I'll get behind, and some things I'm like, what?
Yeah. There are some weird things automakers do for these shows.
Yeah. All right. So something else that didn't make it into our best of worst of show, but was kind of cool. So before the show, Subaru teased like a rear fender, a little bit of a wing of a car. Like, we're bringing in a new crazy car to New York. Come check it out. And a lot of people rightly guessed it's a global rallycross edition of the STI. So for those of you who don't know, there's lots of rally series in the world. We have Rallycross here in the U.S., and we have Rally America, which like the Rallycross is done through the X Games, and there's Global Rallycross. There's the World Rally Championship. There's like Swedish Rally Championship. There's like bunch of rallies, and Subarus do compete in a lot of them. But for like a lot of their rally championship stuff, like if you watch last year's X Games, they were using the older round-bodied STI wagons. So now we have a new STI. And so Subaru's like, hey, here's our new version of the racing car. Everybody knew it was coming eventually. It came a little quicker than I expected. I figured it'd be at least another year before it came out. But it's here. It's covered in sponsorships. I kind of like the blue and gray paint scheme. Nothing super exciting about it. They didn't give us a ton of real info about it. But it looks nice. It's cool to see them upping their game. They haven't done really well in the rallycross stage because their car is so much bigger than the Fiestas and Polos and stuff that are being fielded by Ford and Volkswagen. So I wish them a lot of luck. Hopefully this new car will kind of push them through a bit.
I was a little bit depressed when it came out, though. I was all excited. I was kind of in denial because I saw the reports. Oh, it's a GRC car. It's a GRC car. Don't worry about it. I got kind of excited, thinking, oh, maybe it's a cool little special edition that might be something a little better. And well, no, it's cool. It is cool nonetheless, but still, kind of took the wind out of my sails.
Yeah, I mean, there's not until they replace that 2.5 liter engine that's in it that they've been using since the dawn of time. There's not a lot they're going to be able to do to that car to make it better.
Yeah. Oh well, it was cool. Like 10 years ago, but now it's kind of old.
Yeah, basically. All right, another big thing of the show, which I actually haven't seen a lot of coverage on this, but I think this is a huge deal for Honda, is they announced their HRV. If you don't know what the HRV is, a lot of people have been talking about it for a long time. Honda built a crossover based on the Fit. If you've never been in a Fit, it is the best driving Honda that you could buy, and it's about the smallest Honda you can buy, but it has more room than almost any other Honda does on the inside because of the most intelligent design and packaging in the world. The seats fold down to make a completely flat load floor. It'll almost swallow a 4x8 sheet of freaking plywood, it seems. Like, tons of room inside this thing. Drives great. Drives like old Civics used to. And now they have a crossover version. This really didn't get a lot of coverage because of how much other big news there was at New York. But I think this thing is going to make Honda so much money.
I was shocked it got so little coverage. Like whenever it come across my desk, I'm like, why haven't I read about this yet? Everybody just kind of blew it off. But it's really big news for Honda. I mean, it shoves them into that compact crossover realm. You know, they had the CR-V, but it's a little bit bigger than the Juke and things like that. So this really gives them a leg up on all those companies because now you get the Nissan Juke package, but with Honda quality. So you just can't beat it. And it looks good too. It doesn't take too many cues from the CR-V. That was one thing I was afraid of, is going to just take all the cues from the CR-V.
Just going to be a mini one?
Yeah, that's what I was so afraid of. But no, they really restyled it and made it look like its own standalone car, which is nice.
It actually, and this is something to say how stylish I think it looks, except for the Honda badge on the grill and like the very front of the grill, it could almost be a Mazda.
That's exactly what I was thinking too, yeah.
From like the A-pillars back, like that could totally be like a new CX-5. Like it is very pretty. It is a very pretty car.
It's a gorgeous car, and they are going to sell the hell out of it.
Yeah, you know, we don't have super ton of info on it yet. The engine will probably be the same one from the Fit, maybe improved a little bit. So we're looking, you know, a 1.5 liter, I think, about 130 horsepower or something. Not going to be quick, but it will be enough to move you around and move your stuff around. And price tag should hit under 20 grand, and that's where the ticket to this is. You can have a car that costs as much as your Civic does, or even slightly cheaper than the Civic you're looking at, but you have your crossover, your big size that everybody wants these days. Honda's going to make so much money.
And that really depresses me, because as much as I love my Forte 5, had I known that this car was coming, I probably would have told the wife, hey, let's hold off for a little while, wait to see what this new Honda, the HR-V, has come in, and then we'll make our decision. So we already looked at the Mazda compact SUVs. None of them got good enough gas mileage. But this being based on the Fit, I mean, it's got to be in the 30s in highway at least, and maybe high 20s in cities. So, I mean, it's a win-win for us. That was one of our biggest things, was reliability and fuel economy.
Yeah, I'd say seeing 30, 35 out of that won't be a huge stretch, especially if they put the CVT in it.
Yeah.
All right. So that was kind of a surprise at the show, was the Honda. But one of the big surprises for me was Maserati brought out some Centennial edition of their Gran Turismo MC. Nobody knew this was coming. Like, as far as I know, this was the best kept secret of the auto show season this year. Because, like, we always have spy shots. I mean, you guys read the site. We have spy shots of things all the time. We know what's coming months and months ahead of time. Nobody knew this thing was showing up. It was just like, boom! Here's a brand new Maserati.
Well, I mean, all things considered, it wouldn't really be much to spy at. I mean, it's just some extra goodies on it, from what I'm understanding.
Right, but I mean, it's a big deal for them. Maserati doesn't do very much. They've been focusing all their, marketing power and engineering at the new Ghibli, and I've always loved the Gran Turismo MC. They're beautiful cars. Got a new hood. I love the little scoop in it. Looks a little meaner. Its car sits a little bit lower. It's got some new paints, I believe. Some wheel designs have been updated. They just took one of their cars that looks good, and they basically gave it a mid-cycle refresh sort of thing. But they're like, it's a super special edition 100th anniversary because we're awesome and we're 100 years old. Yay, Maserati.
Yeah, and it is a beautiful car. It's an awesome car in person. I saw one at the car show a few weekends ago, and just a beautiful car in person. The pictures do not do the Gran Turismo any credit. It's a beautiful, much nicer car in person.
Yeah. We talked earlier. Some cars look better, look ugly in photos and then pretty in real life. The Maserati looks stunning in a photo and unbelievably gorgeous in real life.
That's kind of the ongoing thing with every Maserati. They get so little press that you only catch a little bit about them here and there, but when you see one in person, you're like, wow, I did not think it would look like that.
Yeah, they may be like the stepchild of Ferrari currently, but they make some solid machines.
Yeah.
All right, New York was not the only auto show that we had going on the last few weeks. We also had Beijing. Beijing actually had a fair bit of news nobody was expecting because we all thought, yay, it's going to be every single car that's ever been produced in a long wheelbase form, and that's going to be the end of it because that's what everyone in China wants. But we had Infiniti and Nissan brought the first running prototype of a Q50. So this is no longer a concept here, people. This is we are building some of these and testing them to see if they're actually going to be feasible to put into production. So that's huge, huge news. And they put Sebastian Vettel behind the wheel, so yay.
Yeah, I mean, who else would you want to put behind the wheel besides him? And this is
Lewis Hamilton,
who's
actually winning races. Cough, cough, cough. Lewis Hamilton,
yeah.
winning races. Cough, cough.
Okay. Either one will be fine with me. But honestly, this is incredible news. I mean, we were all suspicious about the you're better at saying the name, Eau Rouge. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, we're just gonna.
Yeah, something like that. But
the Q50 GT-R edition.
Yeah, the Q50 GT-R. We were all kind of wondering if it was going to be a production model or if they were just kind of going to say, hey, cool, here's something really nice and neat, but you're not going to get it. But this really shows
they were going to pull a Volkswagen.
Exactly. This really shows that they're dedicated to doing it, that they saw enough positive feedback, which I don't know why they wouldn't see positive feedback on it, but they got enough positive feedback to say, okay, let's actually put this thing together, put a key, start the ignition, put this thing on a track and see what it can do. Now, there's still a whole lot of work to do because they have to work out the kinks and the bugs. Will the GT-R drivetrain really perform that well in a heavy sedan? They don't know that yet. But I suspect it's going to perform admirably, and we're going to see it in production next year, maybe the year after, I think.
Yeah, I think you know what? I dare say that they're going to have a production concept by Frankfurt.
Oh, that'd be a pretty quick turn. Frankfurt is late this year, right?
I think it's November.
Yeah.
October, something like that.
Oof, that'd be a pretty darn quick turnaround. But honestly, you're taking an existing car, an existing motor, and boom, there you go.
Well, it sounds like a quick turnaround, but it's only been they announced it at Detroit?
Yeah, it's Detroit.
And then showed the engine at Geneva, and now they have testing prototypes. So I mean, it's been 4 months to go from here this concept exists to look, we have a running version on a track.
Yeah, and that is true. And like I said, it's basically taking a car you already have and another car you already have and saying, oh, okay, how can we make this puzzle fit together? So yeah, it's not like they're designing anything from scratch, I don't think. And suspension maybe from scratch, things like that, but.
Yeah, suspension said it maybe. I think the biggest thing they're probably going to have issues with is getting that 7-speed auto transmission from Infiniti to play happy with what used to be the dual clutch all-wheel drive setup of the GT-R.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one because you're taking an engine designed to have the hard, quick shifts of a DCT and putting a slush box behind it. That can be, not saying that it's a slush box, but relative, it's a slush box. That could be some trouble in terms of performance. I think it can handle it just fine because these modern transmissions should handle at least 800 foot-pounds by the most part. But will it work well with it? Will it be able to handle the track well, and will it shift properly? Will it hold the RPMs at the right spot? That's all the stuff they have to kind of work out, I think.
Yeah, a little bit of tuning. So hopefully they don't pull a Volkswagen and say, by the way, this car's never going to exist. Everyone go home and cry yourselves to sleep. But Volkswagen did, speaking of them, have some things to show, and one of them is exciting, and apparently they're not lying and actually going to build it. Actually, both of them, they're apparently not lying and actually going to build. So the first one, Volkswagen has a new mid-size coupe concept, which is the worst name in the world for anything.
Yeah, when I first saw that name, I couldn't help but say, like, what were you guys? Were you like sitting at the bar going, "Hey, give me another shot, clank"? Okay, what can we call this thing? The show's tomorrow. I'll just call it the new midsize concept. Ah, ha, ha, okay.
Yeah, well, it's a new car. It's a mid-size concept. That one.
Yes.
So if you guys haven't seen it, check it out. It's actually very pretty. Basically, Volkswagen is remaking the CC. So to make the CC, Volkswagen took the Passat and said, what would happen if somebody actually cared how this thing looked? And then they designed a beautiful body to fit over the Passat. Well, they're doing it again with the Jetta. And that's what this NMC concept is, new midsize coupe concept, is beautiful, swoopy, two-door coupe-ish style vehicle. It's based on the Jetta. So it's beautiful for starters, and Volkswagen apparently is actually going to build it. They've gotten a pretty solid response out of it, and there are production plans to bring this thing to life. Justin, if they bring it, do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's awesome. Volkswagen, not saying they don't sell well, but they cater to kind of a niche group, this very tight-knit group of Volkswagen buyers. That's who they sell to. I'm just going to call it the NMC, just so I don't have to say that name over and over again. The NMC, it kind of gives them that CLA competitor, like you mentioned in your article, that they need. They need something that's going to bring in buyers from other brands. You know, someone shopping a Mercedes CLA for $29,000, they can get this NMC for, say, $26,000 with the same features. It's German built, has all the quality. So it's a win-win for everybody, customers and Volkswagen alike. And it also gives it a nice new style, given they keep this look. It really gives Volkswagen a nice new style to work from without completely neglecting its history.
Right. I think that's what makes the NMC important is I want to see this new front end spread through the rest of the Volkswagen lineup. I love my Golf. I love all the new Mark 7 stuff that's coming out. I love the crisp, clean lines. It's very German, very sharp. It's very pretty. It ages well, which for me is a big thing. Like, Hyundais look cool, but like a Sonata from 3 or 4 years ago already is starting to look old because it was so stylized and so aggressive and interesting that like people are like, okay, whatever, it's weird now. Whereas when you have something like Audi, BMW, Mercedes, like all the Germans do this. They're very clean, very simple designs. And you can take an Audi that's 15 years old and it still looks okay today. Whereas a lot of cars don't do that. So I would like to see this new front end sort of spread around. But I don't know if they're building this car for the right market. Because I can tell you right now, anyone who is actually looking at a CLA is looking for a Mercedes badge, and they're not going to go, I could have got a Mercedes, but I bought a Volkswagen instead.
Well, yeah, but just like with the Mazda 3, it caters to that fringe buyer, the person that doesn't quite have the pocketbook to buy the CLA, but wants all the features and goodies and all the stuff. And also, we forgot to mention, this thing's not a slow automobile either. 6.2 seconds to 60, 152 miles an hour. That's right up there in CLA territory.
Well, yes, but that's because this concept is powered by the GTI and Jetta GLI powertrain. But if this comes, there's no saying that that's the only engine they're going to stick it with.
Well, no, they're going to have the lower end range, of course. They're going to have the bottom. The bottom end's going to compete with your regular old mid-size family sedans. But I think what they're talking about is the top of the line NMC production car is going to compete with the CLA 250. I think that's more along the lines of what we're looking at. It's going to be one of those cars that spans that gap between your typical Honda Accord, Toyota Camry, and the higher end Mercedes. No, it's not going to be a Mercedes quality, but it's going to kind of span that gap a little bit.
All right, fair enough. Volkswagen also announced another car, but I think we're going to skip that this week because we're running super short on time. They announced the Golf R400, which more or less is a 400 horsepower Golf R. So expect me to talk about that a lot next week.
One word, awesome.
Yeah, and apparently they're actually going to be building this in a very limited production, so we'll talk about that some more next week. Other big news from Beijing that we're going to have to cover super quick is the Audi TT Offroad concept. So take an Audi TT, mix it with the Audi Sport Quattro concept, lift it 6 inches and slap it with ugly yellow paint, and that's kind of what they created.
Ugly yellow paint aside, I gotta say it looks decent. It's not ugly and it's not beautiful, but then again, neither is the BMW X6 and the. Oh, I see you. Okay, go ahead and say it.
No, this car is super
cringing.
ugly. This car is super, 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 super. God, it's ugly.
But the entire SUV coupe genre is super, super, super ugly. They cater to that very small, itty
Yes.
bitty group that likes to torture themselves by driving an SUV that you can't put any cargo in, that looks ugly, but handles like hell and goes fast.
Right. No, but so I guess what bothers me is them using the TT name, because they've taken the TT front end and the general TT shape, and then they made it rape Quasimodo, and then what came out they sort of put wheels on. It has this flat, funky face that's been stretched and mushed, and it has this weird, like, humpback sort of stretched, lumpy rear end, and it's hideous.
It does almost look like they took
Awful.
the TT, threw it on Photoshop, and kind of blew the picture up a little bit and stuck big rims under it.
It's
It
so
does-
bad.
But yeah, the TT name I don't think is going to stay. The TT face, yeah, I don't think is going to stay. They're going to take cues from it. It's probably going to end up being some Q4 special edition of some sort. I don't think it's going to actually hold the TT name. There are rumors that they're going to take the TT name and make it a sub-brand. I really doubt that, because then they're pushing that name way too far.
Yeah. Now, I do see them bringing like a Q4 to market to compete with the BMW X4, which is also a stupid car. But that makes sense for them from our competitors are doing this and making money, so we need to do this to take their money sort of standpoint. But yeah, if I ever hear you or Mark talk about how it's not that bad looking, I'm going to drive to Florida and I'm going to hit somebody with a shoe.
No, I didn't say it was a good-looking car. I said it's not that bad.
Yeah, no, if it's anything other than, well, it made my wife vomit. If it's anything better than that level, I'm going to have to drive somewhere and hit somebody with a shoe. So,
Fair
yeah.
enough.
It's an interesting concept. I think Audi needs to bring something like that to market to fight the X4, X6, that sort of stuff. I expect to see something similar from Mercedes very soon. But it's hideous, and dear God, do not sell it in yellow.
Now, did you see the pictures from at the show live? Because there are some pictures from it live at the show, and you're gonna probably tongue lash me again. But
Shoe.
it's not.
Shoe.
No, I'm not Hillary Clinton. Don't throw a shoe at me now. But honestly, it doesn't look horrible in the real picture. The CGI picture that Audi gave us, yeah, it looks like they took the TT and just stretched it in Photoshop. Or even worse, looks like they stretched it in Microsoft Paint. But the at the show picture isn't awful.
It might be better if it was in a better color.
Yeah, it needs to be in a less loud color. Yellow is a little bit too much for that one.
And it's not just yellow. It's like old McDonald's mustard. Like if you have children and they've spilt mustard on their shirt and you didn't notice it until like 6 hours later and it's kind of dried and caked on, they're like, that's the color this thing is.
Fair enough.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap things up. We only have one question this week, so our Q&A is from Tony
Tony, yeah.
or
Okay.
Tony, eh? Something. I don't know. It's a funny name, though. I have a question for you guys. With all this technology, cars these days could drive, in theory, by themselves. So would you ever be capable to trust the car 100% that it will get you to your destination? I find it weird but fascinating when I see those cars that can park themselves. I can only imagine how strange it would be to see one on the road with nobody in the driver's seat.
Well, I'll start this one off. I'm going to say no, and no. I drove the Acura MDX, the full-size SUV, I believe is the MDX. I drove that, and it had all the crazy automated systems, lane control, auto steering, auto cruise control, adaptive this, adaptive that. And while it was really, really cool that you could let go of the steering wheel and it would kind of, sort of track along the road, I found it very, very, very inaccurate and crap my pants scary sometimes. I remember driving down the road and I had the automated cruise control on that says it will stop the vehicle for you at slow speeds. I kept my foot right by the brake pedal, driving about 15 miles an hour through traffic, and almost rear-ended the car in front of me if I hadn't jammed on the brake pedal like I did. So all of this hogwash about automated systems coming in the next few years, if technology keeps going that way, I don't think I would ever trust it until it's really, really refined.
My thing is, like, once everybody on the road is in one of these cars, then I'll trust it more. Because I don't care how smart your car is, when the guy next to you is 3 sheets to the wind in an old 1982 Ford pickup truck and he decides he's going to slam into the side of you, there is jack all you can do about that. And your fancy, super smart self-driving car can't do anything about that because this guy just swerved across 3 lanes at 70 miles an hour and plowed into you. So when everybody is in one and all the cars are talking to themselves, that'll be better. And to be honest, I look forward to it, but for a different reason. Right now, most cars are sold because people have to buy them. They have to go to work. They don't like driving. They don't want to go anywhere. And quite frankly, they're not paying enough attention when they're driving anyways. So pulling them out of the equation makes me happy because I'm less worried about that woman who's next to me putting on her makeup or that kid over here who's texting is going to plow into me. Plus, it's going to get to the point where when everybody is in self-driving cars, they're all going to be on the main highways. All of these wonderful roads that dot our country are going to be mostly empty, so people like us can enjoy them. So it's like horses. My wife rides horses. We've got a pair of them in the backyard. You know, she loves her horses. It used to be horses were something you had to have to get around. Once the car became popular, horses became a leisure item. I think that same sort of thing is kind of going to happen with cars. So once everyone is in these self-driving cars and they're going 105 miles an hour on the interstate using almost no gas, six inches apart from each other, and everyone's zipping around like Jetsons, I can have my old Porsche sitting in the driveway, and I can fire up that loud, nasty, burbly, exhaust-spewing gasoline motor, and I can have all of these roads all to myself. And I don't care if they have to raise taxes out the roof. Like if you want to drive on most of these back highways, you have to pay a huge license tax of like $1,000 a year to upkeep of the road or whatever. I don't care because driving will have become so much better. It would be worth that $1,000 to me.
I agree with you on that point. Once everybody gets it, it's going to be a wonderful thing. But that middle range thing is going to be a complete catastrophe.
Yeah. And what's worse is what happens if people start trying to fix their cars themselves?
So they're going to be zip tying cameras to the body and duct tape and super glue and all that happy stuff?
Well, yeah, so maybe something happens and like and a cheating husband is found out by an angry wife and she hits his car with a baseball bat and one of his cameras is crooked. And yeah, he goes out there with some zip ties to straighten it up. So he never quite stays in his lines ever again.
Yeah, that's also the other scary part. But I'm willing to bet that once these cars really come into production, I think NHTSA is going to step in and say, hey, look, you can have your automated car, but you still have to sit in the driver's seat. You still have to maintain feasible control of the vehicle. You can't just let the car go by itself, kick back and text and drink a beer.
Right. Oh, buses full of scotch that drive themselves. I'm going to be a millionaire. That's my $1 million idea.
Christian's in heaven.
All right. Anyways, we were going to try and do an own drive burn this week, but with Mark not here, it's not quite as much fun to do those with just 2 people, so we're going to push that back 1 more week. Plus, I don't want to do Batman without him because, yay, Batman. Another one that we have that was sent to us was Ferraris, an F40, an F12, or a LaFerrari. So that'll be interesting because no matter what, we all have to burn a Ferrari. But we want to thank everyone for hanging out with us. We know this one's a little bit longer than usual. I said we try to keep them at an hour. We're not very good at it. We get off topic. But we thank you guys for sticking through it with us. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, again, hit us up on the comments. We love reading those and responding to you guys. You can find us all on Twitter. The Twitter for the podcast is TopSpeed Podcast. It's really, really simple. You can reach us on email, podcast@TopSpeed.com. I'm Christian Moe. You can find me at Moford. Justin Coupler is at The Car Junkie. We hope everyone has a wonderful Thursday, wonderful Friday, wonderful weekend, and we'll see you guys next week. Please stay safe, stay happy, enjoy this beautiful weather, get out there and drive some fantastic cars. And thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Also, don't forget we're on iTunes. Like, subscribe, comment, do all that iTunes-y stuff that makes us look awesome so people like us. We love you, everybody. Goodbye.